Hey everybody, welcome back to another Diecast video. Today, it is Cup Series time. We've done the Truck Series, we've done the Xfinity Series, but today we are going to take a look at the Cup Series diecast through the years. So this is going to start in 2003 and go all the way to 2024. I'll talk about little changes, big changes, all sorts of changes that took place throughout these times. And yeah, we'll just kind of start off right where I had mentioned before in 2003. First car I'm going to show you here real quick is a Robbie Gordon 2003. Actually, I got to put this a little lower probably. 2003 Charlie's Angels car. This is actually the car he won with at Sonoma. So, what are the key differences in the 2003? Well, obviously 2003 you've got the Winston Cup Series, okay? So that's a piece of it. Sure, we know that. All right, we can move past that. Rubber window net. Rubber window nuts went through 2005. 2005 on down had the rubber window net. What else did we have in 2003? We had the opening hood. Let me go ahead and pop the hood open real quick. This one's a little stubborn, so I got to get a little angle on it. There we go. We had the opening hood. There you can see the engine detail in there. So there is the engine detail with that. I don't have really good lighting here to get you a good view inside there. But we had an opening hood, and we had the opening trunk. So there you can see what the fuel cell looks like in the back. Tough angle, though. Again, I really don't have a good angle to show you. Gotta get another light over here, don't I? I'll figure something out. Actually, let's see if I can turn this light on. Here we go. There, how about that? Now you can see it. There's our trunk detail. You can see it's a black fuel cell and a tube. I'll show you these. These are just painted on, but it's solid metal. But those little silver pieces are supposed to be the little brackets that hold the spoiler up. Now I can show you the engine detail here, now that I got the light on. So there's our engine detail, and this is a standard ARC from the 2003 season. So, for a refresh, metal die-cast underneath. You'll see stickers on the tires. You'll notice that's on there. Posable wheels, that metal base, and then all the detail underneath. So that is a 2003 ARC. Actually, it was called the Platinum Series, but everything kind of changes names. It's the equivalent of today's ARC as far as the price point and the level of detail. So now we're going to move to the same year, same body, but this is an Elite version. So what are the differences in the Elite? So this is a 2003 Elite. Number one, cloth window net. Okay, that is different. Other one was rubber, this one's cloth. You'll also notice on the roof, we do have opening roof flaps. Opening roof flaps was exclusive to the Elite cars. So you'll see there the roof flaps with the tethers. We'll go to the back. You can see the little spoiler spokes are individual. These are they're not built into the spoiler like they were on the other car. These are individual little spokes. We pop this open. Notice inside the trunk, let's turn that flashlight back on quick. Inside the trunk there, we got tethers, a brace on the right side, and a red fuel cell with the clear tubing. So small change there. Another piece you'll notice is you'll see the metal bars inside the window here. So you see 1, 2, 3 metal bars there, 1, 2 metal bars on the front windshield. You also notice if you look inside, there's a little red wire by the steering wheel. That is a radio wire. There's also a few little, you can kind of see it up here, right there on the A-post, or whatever you call this post right here. You see that metal bracket. So there's that metal bar there. That is not in the ARC. As you can see, the ARC just has the standard roll bars, but this one does have the metal piece there. Also has some black foam on the interior of the roll cage. If you look down inside there, you will see some black bars or black foam kind of fixed into the roll cage. The other thing is, and you can't see it, it's hard to tell, but it does have seat belts. The seat belts are in the seat. This one, they do not have that in the ARC. Let's go ahead and take a look under the hood, because this is where you're going to see the biggest difference. Look at the Elite engine detail that we had in 2003. So that's our 2003 Elite. Now we're going to move down to the 2003 ARC. I'm going to throw them side by side so you guys get a good look at them. For this is kind of the Gen 4 era here. So there you see, that's the difference in them. You can see they still got pretty much the same radiator and roll bars, engine blocks the same color, but you just got the tethers, the braces, you got some extra lines here. You'll see we got I think the belts are the same, it looks like it. There's a couple of other add-ons there. Shocks are painted gold. Over there, they're just painted silver. This little canister up here is actually painted in back there. So yeah, that's where you'll kind of start to see those detail changes. The other detail change that I think is interesting, and I'd have to double check because this car is specifically a special car, but you'll notice down here we have this silver grate. These are painted on because it was a Sonoma car, so that's just a decal. But the silver grate down here, the Elites had them up here on the Chevys. The Elite has a silver grate up there, where the ARC had it down here in 2003. I don't know if the Elite had it here and here, but because of the black bumper on the Racewind, they didn't do that. So I'm pretty sure the Elite had both, but the reason we're not going to see that is because they didn't want to screw up the front bumper and make it look bad by putting a bright silver grate on it. So okay, so that's a 2003 ARC and Elite. Now, one more thing I wanted to show off while I can. We're going to tip them on their side, and we're going to show you the undercarriage, because that's another piece that really doesn't get enough attention between the two of them. So, if you look underneath the car here, I'm going to go ahead and turn that light off real quick. There you can see, I'll lay it right there on its side. So there you see the engine, or the undercarriage detail on the one. We showed that earlier. There's the undercarriage detail on the other. This one's got way more rear suspension. We've got obviously the DIN plate on the rear fuel cell there. You'll notice way more detail here in the rear drive shaft. The drive shaft all the way through the rear end suspension here. So you'll notice there's some shocks, got a sway bar. It looks like there's a wedge bar in there, or whatever else is in there. I have no idea. All the components that were in this thing. But the other thing about the Elite I didn't even mention yet, does have a functioning rear suspension. The front one works on both, but the rear is exclusive to Elites. Posable wheels, and then one more piece to mention, the rims. The rims on Elites are metal. They had metal rims on the Elite diecasts. That was something they kept all the way up into 2008. 2009 was the first year it was plastic rims on all the cars. But up until 2009, an Elite had metal rims in it. So yeah, that is the 2003 Elite and 2003 ARC. So we're going to move into one more generation of the Gen 4. Now, I got to mention a couple things about the Gen 4 real quick. Gen 4 had a couple different eras. There was the Ford Taurus era. The Ford Taurus ran, in my book, I say my book, meaning since I started watching, everything starts in 2003. So they had it at least in 2003 to 2005, I believe, they ran the Taurus. Then Ford switched to the Fusion in 2006 and ran that all the way to 2011. Well, they ran the Fusion, but changed some decaling and stuff on the car. But they ran the Fusion after that, and the body shape changed after 2005. Chevy changed their nose as well. So I'm going to show you that one real quick. There is the Chevy from 2007, which actually changed in 2006, but this just happens to be the car I'm showing. So you'll notice a couple changes. The grille is much skinnier, a little bit wider. Headlights are a slight bit different shape. You'll notice if you look at it from a side profile, this one is pretty basic. It's just kind of curved and then a drop. You'll notice on this one, it's a little bit more of a ridge out than drop, a little more rounded. So the nose took a little bit of a different shape. Still Monte Carlo. This one was the Monte Carlo SS, but there were small changes in there. So let's point out a couple other changes. Now, this was 2004 or 2003, 2007. Last generation of the Gen 4, first one, not the first, but one of the early ones. So if you look at that dash, just plain black, nothing to see there. Let's go to this one here. You do at least have the little radio detail or whatever that thing is, transponder, I'm not sure what I even call it. Cloth window net, rubber window net. Roof flaps obviously were, like I said, standard after 2005, and that was on all models, not just Chevy, not Ford, it was all of them. Let's go to the back of the car, painted, everything's the same back here. They did eventually add the DIN numbers to it, so that's started in 2006, I believe. Let's go ahead and take a look underneath the car. Looks a little bit better, I think, on the engine detail up front. We'll go ahead and show you the engine detail side by side for the Chevys. Now, obviously, each generation has small changes. The Chevys, the Fords, the Dodges, and Toyota had one generation of the Gen 4 car. So here we go. You can kind of see that in there. Let's go ahead and turn that light on so we can see again. So these are two ARC variations. So you can see pretty similar. 2003, 2007, not a huge amount of change. Couple little tweaks and changes here and there, but overall, not a crazy amount of change. So pretty basic. It doesn't show you anything too crazy, anything too different. Only thing worth noting is on the 2007 Gen 4s, back here, the hood hinge actually does stick out of the rear. It's the same hood hinges we have today, but they do stick out the back of the car. It's a kind of an ugly look in my opinion, but They were switching to that with all their next, COT gen stuff, and so that's what they ended up doing on the Toyotas. So that is what you'll see on those. Okay, so that's a Gen 4 2007. Let's go actually put that next to a Gen 4 2007 Elite. So by 2007, these spokes had gotten to a chrome rod instead of the kind of plasticky gray one. Still had the metal rims. This is Harvick's Daytona win. And in my opinion, these had the best detail of any car that was ever out there, in my opinion. So underneath, you can see we got the din plate. You can see all the rear color and details on the rear suspension. Obviously, like I said, full function on that rear suspension, posable front wheels. Let's go ahead and go right under the hood because that's a good place to go. Gen 4s probably had, no, it's not even a question. Gen 4s did have the best engine detail in the game. This is by far the best detail engine that we ever got in the diecast world. Hopefully it comes back someday, but it hasn't trended that way. But you can see a lot more hoses, wires, belts. Just they had a lot of stuff in there. Obviously, we got the tethers and the braces, so very busy under the hood, but that's what a race car is. It's supposed to be busy under the hood. Obviously, opening roof flaps, cloth window net. The interior also had some very unique details. The shifter had a bright white knob on the top of it, seat belts, dash, lettering or numbers on all the dash gauges. Everything like that was in there as well. So a lot of overall detail in this car that was definitely, I don't want to say forgotten, but we lost a little bit of it when we moved into the COT era. So yeah, that was the last generation. Like I said, Chevy had the silver grade on the front like this, but it was a longer, wider one like that. And that was the last generation of the Gen 4. So, like I mentioned before, there's a couple changes that did happen throughout that time. Dodge had the Intrepid. They moved to the Charger, and then the Charger got a revamp in 2007, got way more curved before they went to the COT era. I mentioned Ford, Chevy, and I think I've already mentioned Toyota had a little change from the Camry there. But now, let's go ahead and move into the Gen 5. So Gen 5 is going to start with the COT era. And in this era, we had 4 manufacturers. We had Dodge, Chevy, Ford, and Toyota. So the first one I'm going to show you is a Dodge. This is actually from 2009. And the reason I took 2009 is in 2008, the Dodge Charger, you can see it right here, it's very smooth across the grille. They used the 2007 mold, which was for the Avenger, and just stuck the grille decal over it, so it looks not great on the ARCs. So yeah, that was one I had to kind of do. I decided to pull that. The other thing that I noticed, or at least on the Cane cars specifically, the Dodge end plate here in 2009, you'll notice it's black on one side, red on the other. The early preseason one, the whole end plate, inside and outside, is red. By the time the mid-season stuff, so the Coke 600 win, the All-Star win, when the Win cars came out, they were just red on the outside, they were black on the inside. So let's go into the rest of the COT real quick. Cloth window net. Underneath, posable wheels. You can see the splitter there. Splitter spokes, all there in silver as well. Let's go ahead and pop this open. Oh, this the wing. The lovely wing that would always fall apart and break on everybody. We've all been there. We've all had a broken wing at one time or another. There's the fuel cell there. We do have the red fuel cell with the clear and black tubing. And we'll go back around and we'll get under the hood real quick and take a look in there. There's the engine detail there. This is on the Dodge. But you see there's a couple belts, 1 or 2 hoses, but otherwise it is pretty clean in there. The other thing the COT does introduce is these hinges. You see how those hinges do stick up above the car. You got a hinge there and a hinge there. I hate these hinges, not because they don't work. They actually work very well. They do a great job of holding the hood up and being able to open and close and everything like that. But the biggest thing about this that I absolutely despise is they look so bad. I mean, this metal hinge just sticking out of both drives me nuts. And by the way, it drives me nuts to this day. We still have them on the deck lid. At least the hood we don't have it, but the deck lid of our modern cars still have these metal hinges, and I just don't like them. I think they're ugly. So, again, mostly an ugly thing, not really a function thing, but let's move on to the next one. This is the COT from the 2008 era. Now, this one you'll notice right off the bat. A little bit more detail here inside the dash. We got a little bit more of those hoses and wires. You can see there's a lot of them, actually, there inside. We also have a white speedometer there inside there. Let's see, we got the white speedometer, the radio wire. You'll notice the 2 metal bars across the windshield. DIN numbers in the back, those are normal, that's on both of them. Roof flaps are on both of them. This one you see there is an antenna hole there on the one. The roof flaps do also have the tethers with this. Let's see, seat belts. Yes, they do have seat belts in there. One of the bigger pieces, though, of this that I thought was kind of neat, some of these had the black spokes. That was not exclusive to ARC or Elite. It's just something that happened to be on these specific ones. But let's go ahead and show you the inside the trunk detail quick. So inside the fuel cell, pretty similar, really. The biggest thing you'll notice is there's a decal on the tube. Right down in there, you'll see there's a decal on the tube, and then the braces and tethers. So once you get past the braces and tethers, it is pretty similar back there, not a huge difference. Now another piece we're going to notice, and I'm going to throw this down because we got to tip them on their side. If you go on to the bottom of the car, you're going to notice right off the bat, okay, my biggest thing I see is the big bumper bar, the DIN plate, rear suspension, front, just side by side here. There you can see kind of the difference between the two. Actually, one of them has a few more of the lighter color bars, but you can see the transmission lines there. There are no lines on this one, so although one of them may look like it's got more detail, this one definitely has that. Now, I had mentioned something about the rear suspension on this car. You flip this up, you push down, rear suspension does move, and the front suspension moves on the Elite. It only moves on the front for the ARC on the car tomorrow's. Under the hood, that's the last one we got to look at. So let's go ahead and pop a hood here. Now, these are not matching engines, so there will be small changes in the engine that you'll notice as far as the color of the block, maybe the color of the some of the lines or hoses, but that's not really what we're here to focus on. We're here just to see kind of how different they really are. So there you can see that is the Toyota engine. You'll notice right off the bat there's a few more engine wires and hoses on that than there were on this Dodge here. There we go. Pop that open. And there you see them side by side. So, actually, lucky enough, they both have red valve covers. But yeah, you'll notice there's a couple more lines. Looks like maybe a slightly different outfit for the Toyota as far as the way they put their engine stuff. But braces, tethers, obviously there's some painted canisters on the back mount there. Shocks look about the same. And yeah, just a few more hoses mainly is the biggest thing you'll notice. I don't see any major other changes other than, of course, the braces and the tethers. So we'll get those pop back shut. But yeah, other than that, that's kind of the biggest difference. Obviously, there's some weight difference. This one's much heavier than this one because of extra components, a little bit heavier built chassis. Let's see, that is the only other COT I have. So I do have one more variation I'm going to bring out. This is a variation from 2010, and this was after they made the decision to change the car. So 2010, about partway through the year, they changed the cars and started doing spoilers. So everything else is the same on the front end. They only made a change to the back end. So they added the spoiler to the back after Keselowski sent Edwards up into the air and into the Talladega catch fence. I think that was in 2010. I can't remember, honestly. I thought maybe that was 2009. But either way, they did make that change, and so they did make a small tweak to that. You will notice there's a little less detail there inside that dash area there. And there's also some less detail just kind of overall. Like the mirror isn't as cool. The radio wire is still there. The metal rims are gone because this was 2008. This one's 2008. That's 2010. And the seat belts are a little less detailed. Just overall, a little less detail. This one had painted steering wheel kind of prongs or whatever you call the spokes in the middle of a steering wheel. This one doesn't. Metal grate on both of them though. So yeah, no other major changes. I will shout out a couple things on these 2010. Number one, Sonoma, he blew the tire out. Look what they did. They put this little sliver of rubber back here that you could just let it sit. So it would still sit upright. It just looked like there's no tire, which is exactly what it's supposed to look like. So that's pretty cool. And then also the transmission lines there. This became more standard 2010, 2011, 2012. Still had the DIN or the bumper bar here and stuff, but that was the kind of the bigger changes that we saw as you approached the next era of the Gen 5. So COT is the Gen 5 era, started in 2007 with the wings. Then they made this change here to the spoiler. And then, I'm going to get to the next batch of them, but in 2011 they made one more change, and I think it was the best change they made cosmetically. I don't know if it actually changed the racing all that much from 2010, but what I definitely know it did is it changed the look of the car, and it was a great and warm welcome. But we got rid of the spokes. We got rid of the wings, and we got rid of the little splitter spokes. Now, it still has a splitter. If you look underneath, there's a splitter right there, but they got rid of the splitter spokes, and I thought the cars actually looked really good in this era, and they looked okay. I think a lot of people thought they looked ugly. I get it. They did look a little ugly. However, these are my favorite generation of race car. They raced so well. They raced good everywhere. They were good on short tracks. They were good on super speedways. They were good on intermediates. They were good on road courses. This car was good everywhere. This car was great. And you know why it was great? And I'm not even going to say why it's great. Do you know what the Xfinity car is? It's this. It's a slightly altered and improved version of this car. This was the answer. No next gen. Not even a Gen 6 was needed. This car was perfect. And it only got to run 2005 to 2012. Or 2007 to 2012. We only got 5 years out of the car. What a shame. This car, had NASCAR stuck with this car, I am telling you, the sport would have had so many absolutely stellar races from 2013 to 2020 because the personalities were there. All you needed was the car itself to race at that high level. And man, I think us fans missed out on that big time. So anyway, this was the last variation of those cars, like I had mentioned, antenna hole up front there. But this is a 2011 Talladega win, so those are kind of the details that changed. Now, I will mention one more car. I'll bring it up here. This was 2012. They did make some tweaks in 2012 right before they lost this car, unfortunately. But this is Dale Jr.'s win. But they did add, let's see if I can get a better look at it here. So in the 2012 car, they added a couple things. You can see on the top, they had 3 antenna holes instead of just 1. That was in one piece. The other piece is this side mirror. That side mirror sticking right out the window. That was also a thing they added starting in the 2012 season, and unfortunately also ending in the 2012 season. Another piece they did, if you look inside the window, the Newman bar, I believe is what that one's called, that goes right across the front of the windshield. Let me slide this over. This little bar right here, that white bar there, they changed the color to black on the Elites. It's still white on the ARC, but it's black on the Elites. And that's kind of the main difference. You'll notice a lot less detail inside here. I'm going to try and point where that's at. Right there, you'll see there's just kind of some basic black in detailing. You go to the 2011, you got a whole little silver box inside the dash. So lose a little dash detail, but you added a black bar across it. I don't know. It kind of seems like a wash to me. I didn't notice any other major changes underneath. But I did notice the roll cage. You can see here the roll cage is actually black versus white. So you have a different color roll cage on the Elites. But yeah, underneath everything looks pretty much the same. There was no major changes that really, shook everything up. So no changes that were too bad to deal with from that. So that wraps up the Gen 5 era. Now we're going to roll into the early Gen 6 era. So the Gen 6 era starts in 2013, goes all the way to 2021. And in that Gen 6 era, our first variation came out, and boy, was our first generation weird. Let's show you the first thing about it. So, first things first, you'll notice, hey, no more ugly hinges on the front, right? Right, but wrong. So first thing I do notice early in the 2013 season, and I had a couple cars like this, you'll notice Keselowski on the window banner. It's kind of boring, kind of a weird font too. So the font was weird, and there's no Ford emblems on either side. That was also a later addition. Now the roof flaps opened, so that was still there. The trunk opened like normal, and there's no Ford emblem there either, which is weird. But now we're going to go to the hood, because this is where things got weird. Now, Gen 6 cars, here's the cool part right away. Functioning rear and front suspension. That was pretty cool, right? We got a functioning rear suspension for the first time. Detail, definitely a little lacking under here, and I'll show you why once we get under the hood. But watch this. You would think the proper way to open the hood would just be to go under and lift. That is wrong. Now, I say that is wrong. That is partially wrong. They eventually did make that the variation after a lot of confusion. But here's how you opened the hoods in the first generation. You'd pop this up. You would actually pull it out. I'm having trouble because it was such a dumb design and everybody hated them. So this literally took only half a season for them to kind of come to their senses and fix. But you see how I'm kind of wiggling the hood up? It literally has to come parallel to the car almost. See, it's a struggle. All right, let's see here. Did I get it? Is it all the way up? There we go. And you just keep pulling. So you lift, and then you pull the hinge forward. And I can't really get a good view for you here. There we go. All right, so there. That is the hood opening. I'm going to show you here real quick. There's the engine detail. The engine detail is just a plastic block with paint on it. So unfortunately, not a huge amount of detail. But I'm trying to see. There you go. Look at that hinge. It was called... I think it was called the slide hinge or something, but it was a very unique design. Somebody had an engineering degree and did a good job with it. And the problem is it just didn't function very well. So there, I'm going to try and see if I can focus on that hinge back there.
There, you see that hinge? That is the slide hinge. This was exclusive to the 2013s and did not last all that long. They did eventually get that fixed. But, like I said, it led to this weird hood design, and when you went to close it, it went like this. And then you would actually push the whole hood down. Like, oh, it's weird. Watch this. I'm going to show you how to push it down. There. It would, like, the whole hood would just parallel slide down. So a very weird hood hinge design. Thank goodness that only lasted half a year. And like I said, they fixed the windshield banners halfway through the year as well. Now the good news, in my situation at least, is that that didn't really affect most of my diecasts because I typically like to buy the Elites. And so if you put an Elite next to an ARC, first thing, like I mentioned on the 2012, we got a white Newman bar and a black Newman bar. I think it's called the Newman bar. Don't quote me on that. It might be wrong. Metal bars inside the windshield. Okay, that's another piece that's exclusive to Elites. These are just plastic lines kind of painted on there. But right off the bat, obviously they fixed the windshield name. They have the right Chevy emblems. The other thing I'm going to show off real quick is the hood. Does this want to pop open for me, or am I going to have to fight it? I think I'm going to have to fight this one. Come on, hood. Don't need to be like that. Come on, pop right open. There you go. So there's the hood popping open there. And you will notice, once I get that zoomed in a little bit, that engine detail is a little bit better. You can see individual plug lines, a couple of wires. Obviously, the braces and tethers are a big piece of that. And once you do fold it down, you can look underneath the car actually as well. And you'll notice the individual lines in there and some more of that detail up underneath the front end. So that one, you don't end up with the plastic block like you did under the other one. Now in the rear, you still have the braces, tethers, but the rest of it is the same. There's really no difference in the actual fuel cell, just the braces and tethers for the most part in the back of the car. Like I said, some small window differences there. Another piece about it is the window net. You can usually pull down pretty easily just like that. Let's go ahead and do a 3-time zoom and some light. See if we can look down inside there. But you can see there's the gauges. They're just painted. They don't have the detail like the Elites did before. There's actually a driver's mirror right in there. You can kind of see it right here, right by where my finger's touching. There's a mirror there. But it's inside the window now instead of outside. And then we'll just pop that right back up in there. So black roll cage and some other small differences on the Elites versus the ARCs. Obviously functioning front and rear suspension still. So those were not exclusive to just those cars in the early 2013, but the Elites also had those. And I guess I didn't mention this, but the roof flaps do deploy on all of these cars. But there is a small difference when you get to the 2013 Elites versus the ARCs, which is the 2 tethers. You can see those tethers there. Now, a function I've had trouble with in the past. Actually, that went down good. Sometimes these tethers will jam up on you when you're trying to close it. This one actually straightens out pretty good, but you just kind of got to make sure they line up. Don't fold them on each other. Don't crumple them. There'll be a little trouble, but not too bad. So that is a 2013 ARC and 2013 Elite. Now they made one small change heading into the 2014 season. I'm going to show you that real quick here. 2013, 2014, this is Harvick's Darlington win, but they added the spoilers. So for just a quick reference, the spoilers on 2013s are solid metal. They are a solid piece to the deck lid. That is a solid metal piece. Okay. On the 2014s, these are now external spoilers. Now, the deck lid is still solid metal. The actual spoiler here on the back, this is plastic. So they added a big plastic spoiler to it. The rest of the car is the same. Nothing really changed. Obviously, like I said, fixed windshield banners and logos and stuff like that got fixed. But yeah, when it comes to the spoiler on 2014s, they did fix the spoiler and added the clear topper to it, but also added a plastic spoiler instead of a metal. So they were able to start changing the spoiler heights in 2014. And they also, I believe, later in 2013, they kind of figured out how to lower the cars. The early 2013 Gen 6 cars were a little high. They would ride very tall, and so they were able to kind of shorten the spoilers up a little bit. So now, the last thing before I go into the last couple of these Gen 6 eras, because there was a small change in 2017 and 2018, I want to go through a couple variation changes. I showed you earlier the Ford Fusion that Ford originally launched with, which was this one here, has a grill plate in it, and really just looked like that as far as the kind of shape of it. They did make that change in 2016 where they took that grill insert out and just went to a solid painted version. So you can see the nose didn't actually change a ton. They rounded it up a little bit and went to a decal for the grill instead of an actual in plate there, because these little plates would get knocked out at like short tracks and they'd be laying all over the track. So So yeah, they did a small change there. Toyota made a change in the nose. Toyota went from a little bit less pointed nose in 2013. 2017, they redid the Camry nose, ended up looking like this when it was all said and done. They ran this actually all the way until 2024, this pointed nose design. So that was a Toyota innovation that they changed midway through the Gen 6 era. And for Chevy, they ran the Chevy SS that you saw on both the Cane and Harvick cars, and eventually they would switch in 2018 to the Camaro. Now this is a 2020 Camaro. There was a small variation change from the 2020 Camaros to the 2019s. Not a huge deal. If you're a diecast collector, you will be able to notice it, but basically what happened was the little groove where the headlights are, you'll see it's really flat right here. It used to be a much bigger indentation, and so 2020 they fixed that indentation because Chevy had such bad speed at 1.5 miles, and it seemed to work because 2020 and 2021 Chevy won a buttload of races, but they did make a nose change between the 2019 and 2020 season. Okay, so we're going to move on to the last generation of the Gen 6 car, and this is going to be the generation right before the next gen car. So 2018 to 2021, Lionel comes out and announces they're making some changes to the cars. They're going to change the price points, and they're going to change the detail levels. So I'll show you 2017 right before we start this. Don't worry, I didn't forget about it. But 2018, they announced the ARCs are going to change, and they're no longer going to have opening deck lids. You can see all the pieces are there, but they don't have any hinges. So that was what they were essentially doing. They're going to be able to use the same body molds, but they're just not going to have that in there, so you don't have to do that. Other pieces still have the roof flaps, still has the opening hood. Plastic chassis. So you see here the body and the undercarriage. This is all plastic. So they changed that to plastic. Let's go ahead and go right under the hood here real quick so I can show you the engine detail, because actually this is where a lot of people were very frustrated when this change took place. I will say, I don't think I ever really liked the ARCs for this car. I really didn't. I'm trying to poke this hood open, but it is really tight. There we go. Poke you open. So poke the hood open. But the engine detail actually didn't change. It's the same plastic block that it was back in 2013 and all the way through 2018. Like the engine detail didn't change. All we lost was the metal chassis and the opening trunk. So not a huge sacrifice in terms of detail, but the price point at that point went from 60, or was it? Yeah, 69, so $70, and I believe it went down to, was it 50? God, I want to say it went to 50. $50, but I can't remember for sure. I know the Elites were 87. I think these might have been 57. There was a $30 difference. So they went from 57 to 87, or 69, so 70 to 57. So you took about a $14 drop. The Elites were the ones that really took the biggest jump. And I'll show you what happened there. So the Elites look like this Blaney one here. We still got the opening hood, trunk, roof flaps, undercarriage detail was die-cast chassis, die-cast metal. So you still had all that detail, but I'm going to show you, compared to a 2017 Elite, what features we lost and the price point at which we lost those features. So starting off right away, 2017 Elite, you'll notice we've got full window net. You can't take that window net down. They changed that starting in 2017 from 2016. But there are a couple really cool details that were on this. One of the biggest ones being right here on this roof flap right there. Oh, please be the... It's got to let me get this open here. There we go. I'm going to zoom in. So right there, you're going to notice there's actually a little cloth right there. That little cloth was an addition just in 2017. It was another example of Lionel really starting to add some detail back to the car, and I love it. That little cloth was such a small thing, but I loved it. I thought it was such a cool, unique detail. Sometimes they like to get wrinkled up, and they don't like to close. This one comes right back together good. Undercarriage is actually very similar. You'll notice a little less on the transmission lines up here. There we go. That's what I was trying to show you. There's the lines. You can see not as many of those in there. We'll back out here real quick. The only other piece on the 2017 Elites that I really missed, and I thought they were really coming around and they were really starting to look really good, is right under the hood here. Once again, we're going to get our flashlight and our 3x zoom. But you can see the braces and tethers. See them tethers? Those tethers are tied to the back of the motor, and they're much tighter. It's a much straighter line. So they were just a much cleaner look. Those tethers looked way cleaner, and the braces looked a lot cleaner. It really cleaned up the engine detail, and I thought it really didn't look that different, but I really, really liked the attention to detail and how clean it made the undercarriage of that hood look. Now, I'm going to show you what they did on the 2018, because we lost a few details, but we also dropped price on this car by a pretty big margin. And so that was where I was a little torn, because at first, nobody likes to lose detail. Let's not, kid ourselves. Nobody was celebrating the idea that, well, now we don't get the detail that we had before, because, like I said, we all like detail. None of us want to have a car that doesn't have cool details on it. But let's show you exactly what we changed here. Okay, so under the hood here, this doesn't open real well because the Fords never did on these cars, but under the hood here, you'll notice there are no braces and tethers, so we did lose the braces and tethers under the hood. We do still have the engine detail. We did lose the plug wires, so we lost the plug wires and the transmission wires that would run inside there. So a couple of engine details, but the engine was still the same. And the reason I say the engine is the same is because when you close the car, the key was, could you look up through here to the bottom of the hood? And you can see, I can look through the engine detail to the bottom of the hood here. And that is not the case for the ARCs anymore. You can see they're all blocked off. You see right here, where that little transmission, that's all a plastic block. There's no seeing through that. Oops, sorry, the camera's probably a little too close. Let's go back a little bit. But you can't see through this to the hood. You can see around the outside of it. You can't see through here to the hood. So that is where the difference changed there. We went from being able to do that to not. So we did lose the braces and tethers. Step one, we lost those. Still got the opening roof flaps, so we lost our tethers. We got to keep the antenna holes, so we did at least have that. Inside, the details inside the cockpit of the car, virtually the same. We did lose one detail that I think was, or a couple details. One, the steering wheel used to turn when you did this. You lost the detail for the steering wheel to turn when you did that. That's actually just a little wire right up here, but you can see I can turn that there. You can't really see inside the car, but the steering wheel does turn. There's also a radio wire on that steering wheel. We lost that detail. So we lost braces, tethers, steering wheel wire, and posable steering wheel. The wheels still turn. We just lost the ability for the steering wheel inside the car to turn. All right, so those are the details we lost. Now, we also went from a $110 Elite to a $87 Elite. So we actually cut 24 bucks off the Elite. And so it made the Elites a lot more collectible on a consistent basis, because these were a little tough to collect, all of them, because they were just so much more difficult to pay for. But when you cut $20-some off the cost, these suddenly become a little more affordable. So am I going to say that this Elite is better than this Elite for the price? No. I actually think both of them were perfect in their own way. I liked both of them a lot. I really loved the 2017 Elite, but I'm not going to call this a total failure, because I did think it really opened the door for a lot of people to get into Elites, like myself. And then once you're into Elites, you end up going back and collecting cars you already had in Elite and then selling off your ARC. So I'm not going to call it a failure. I think that it was an okay option at the time. Now, one last thing I was going to show off before we get there was just one more variation that we had in the middle. This is actually a 2016 car. So in 2016, they did have one other variation change, which was they went from that plastic spoiler that you saw on the Harvick with the clear top to a solid spoiler. So you see here, they actually went to a shorter spoiler, but NASCAR or Lionel was slow to adopt. But you'll see this is a tall yellow spoiler. There's no clear topper to it. So if you look at a 2016 car, you'll notice it's solid across here. 2014 car has the clear topper to it. A couple of 2015s have the clear topper, but most of them have the solid spoiler. And the other thing is, in 2016, that was the last year you could actually still do this, where you took the window net down. Once 2016 was over, they changed the window net style, which did include the changes to the roof flaps and those other ones I was talking about. But unfortunately, when they changed that and you got that cloth and some of those cool details, you did lose the ability to pull your window net down. So there were some cool things like that, but there you can see those transmission lines I was talking about on the Elite. Those are gone on the 2018 on newer. These were gone, but before that, they were there. So again, we lost that detail, but we also did save a lot of money. Now, one last thing I wanted to show off before we go too far. One other random variation we had was this. The light-up rear-end car for the All-Stars. Now, this was just a really random thing they did. The cars lit up. The 2020 All-Star race was the uttermost gimmicked thing we've ever seen. They had literal underglow to the car like this, and you can see the way they did that. Just 2 LED lights in there. There's a battery that goes right in there and an on-off switch. But yeah, all that was just one random thing they did. So yeah, you can see that it was totally random, one-off, but that was only available in ARC, so that's why I have this car. It's a perfect little showcase of what Lionel did at one time, and kind of the neat little thing about it. So, but anyway, now, should be pretty much wrapping up our Gen 6 era. So with Gen 6 era, started out one way. We had that big change in 2018 where the Elites and ARC shuffled. I actually forgot to get out a Gold Series car. Believe me, you don't want them. They don't have posable wheels. They don't have opening roof flaps. They don't have opening trunks. The hood opens, and it's just a really poorly painted plastic block. They only cost $40, which was kind of nice. The problem was the details sucked so bad nobody wanted them. And I say that because a lot of Kane's cars were produced in that Gold Series car in 2017, and nobody wanted them because they sucked detail-wise, and unfortunately the Mountain Dew car that looked probably my favorite paint scheme of Kane's Hendrick tenure got non-produced because nobody pre-ordered it, and I wish they would have offered the Elite because I know it would have gotten made in Elite. But unfortunately, they only made it in that stupid Gold Series. So we're not going to talk about Gold Series because Gold Series is awful. But we will move on to the next gen. So I'm going to pick out my first next-gen car here. This is from 2022, Ross Chastain's Coda win. And we're going to show you here, this is an ARC, this is Chris Buescher's Richmond win. Starting with the next-gen car, you could start to have the chrome finish on the numbers, so you do see a mirror number there, a little mirror number there. That's kind of a thing that they just started to do on the next gen, which is pretty neat. But then we're going to move on here real quick. One thing they did have early on, you see these big, tall spoilers. That was what they were supposed to run on this car. They actually changed it in testing, realized it would race better without that, and they switched to this type of spoiler. It did take Lionel till about the late 2022 season to start adding these spoilers to cars. Ross Chastain's Martinsville has that, I believe, and I believe some of the championship stuff has those spoilers, but it did take, unfortunately, really, really late in 2022, they started adding that spoiler, and all the 2023s have the updated spoiler, unless they're the Super Speedway. Super Speedways, they will still give you the big, tall spoiler, because they actually do run a big, tall spoiler on a Super Speedway, where now they have at least gotten an accurate spoiler height for the rest of the cars. So that's one change. Let's move on to a couple of others. So, plastic underneath. You can see this is just the plastic underbody here of the car. It is plastic all around, very light. We will go ahead and pop the hood open real quick and show you the detail there. You can see it's not crazy. We do have the engine box. It's a block. Like I said, it's a one solid block, just painted differently. But that is our engine detail. Let's go ahead and turn that on. Oh, it's not going to work. Okay. Well, let me grab my charger real quick because it looks like my phone is actually dying on me. And so we're going to need the charger. Go, charger, go. Battery too low. Well, that's interesting. Okay, well, I guess we'll do that later. But let me show you the engine detail on the Chevy real quick, and then we'll get back into the rest of it. Appear to be having a small issue with this Chevy. There we go. Had to pop the hood open. It was getting caught on the windshield. But there you can see the Elite detail versus the ARC detail. Once I get the light back, I'll turn that on. For some reason, it's not charging right now. So once I get back above 15% battery, it'll probably let me do that. But yeah, this one has an actual engine detail. What else is there about the Elite versus the ARC? Elite, or ARC, sorry. Move that over. ARC, no rear suspension. You have posable front wheels, no front suspension. It is solid. It is just a pretty basic plastic car with posable wheels. The Elite does still have the functioning rear suspension, a little bit on the front suspension, a little more stiff. Fully functioning, I say fully functioning, full engine detail inside. Another piece it does have, if you open the trunk, I forgot to mention, the trunk actually does open on these. And then underneath, you'll see here, if you look past this plastic piece here, there is a metal die-cast chassis underneath. So you do get the metal die-cast chassis there. But unfortunately, we don't get that with the ARCs. So that is definitely one thing we don't get to have. I think I'm going to probably have a cat knock all this down here real quick. What are you doing? I know it's late, but you're going to need to wait. You're going to need to wait, little boy. Oh, hold on. I got to get him down before he knocks everything over. I have too many cars out because I had to make this nice long video. Come here, you. Nope, give me that. Give me that. Yeah, it's okay, kitty. You just have to wait a little bit. Okay, now we're good to go. I had to let him go down for a minute. Okay, now we can turn that light on. Let's look at that engine detail one more time real quick. So, 3x zoom. You'll see inside there, you can see the individual little holes inside that car there. There you see them. Those are for the plug wires. This one is only going to have, like I said, the full plastic block. It is painted, so it does look nice. So the engine detail, as far as how it looks, is very similar. The difference is you'll notice if you look down up next to the car here, you'll see right down here, it's hard to see, let me tip it up. There you see that little spoke there, that's where the wheel attaches, that's where the spring is for the functioning suspension. So, that is the detail we have under the hood there. And like I had mentioned before, this one is a significantly heavier car. Let me back this up quick. This one is a significantly heavier car because the chassis inside is made of metal. And I'm going to show you real quick because I want to bring it out. This is the newest variation of the car. It's called the Elite Premier. Just came out, I don't know, a week and a half ago or so. And so we're going to show you here. This is what it looks like underneath an Elite. This is all metal. So we got a metal die-cast chassis here. And that is exclusive to the Elites. Which means, I got to pull this little piece here up. Okay, I don't know where the screws are, but that's okay. It means this piece does come off. That's the little, what they call the diffuser. So the diffuser does come off of the Elites. Now, the Elite Premier that I'm showing you right here has a slightly different diffuser from the Elites, but it does come off of both of them. So you can take these screws out here, that one, let's turn that flashlight off, that one, and one in the back, and this plastic piece will move out, and you can see underneath, that's where the metal chassis starts. So that is the detail difference. One of them is just plastic. One of them does have all that detail. None of it's really visible. I'll be honest. You really can't see the difference between the two. The only way to tell the difference in the next gen era between an Elite and an ARC is to look at it like this. Is there an antenna hole or not? That's it. That's really the only way. You look in there, you see that antenna hole? Elite. You don't see the antenna hole? Not an Elite. That's it. That's all you can do to tell the difference. You can feel it. This is, like I said, a heavier car, moving rear suspension. There's some details, but if you're just looking at a picture, that's going to be the only way to tell. Now, let's show you this last car here real quick. So this car is the Elite Premier. They did add a couple things. You'll notice right off the bat, you look inside the window there, that little paint detail, that is new. They didn't have that paint detail in there before. There's a right side driver's mirror here. Let's zoom in on that real quick. There we go. Right there, that mirror right there. That driver's side mirror is also exclusive to the Elite Premier. We go inside the trunk. The braces and tethers return. Sorry, just the tethers. We have two tethers in there. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to see. But there you see the two tethers. That is new for the Elite Premiers. And we'll go under the hood real quick and just show you a couple of kind of unique details here. But as you go under the hood of the Elite Premier, you do have a couple of small tweaks and changes. The engine detail itself actually is no different. Engine detail, we do add the Chevy emblem and the carbon fiber decaling. Outside of the two tethers, the decaling, that's it. The difference under the hood is just that. These two decals and the tethers. So, if you don't care about the tethers or decals, the Elite Premiers are probably not for you, because there's not a big enough difference. There's a couple unique and kind of really cool things with them too. This is under the diffuser. It actually has a metal diffuser with a gold din plate. But outside of that, that's really it. That's the only difference. So, one Elite, this one here is about $150. This one is $120. And this one here is around, I want to say 85. So, let me back this up. You can't see. Sorry guys, it was a little taller than I thought. I got to back this up. Show you the last of these editions, because this is where we sit right now. These are the newest 3 editions we've got for our NASCAR diecast to choose from. But basically, when you're looking at these 3, we're talking about somewhere, I think it's 85, 120, 110. Sorry, 85, 110, and 140 is what they run. Race versions, there's a small upcharge. Chrome numbers, there's a small upcharge. That's all different, but that's the differences you're looking at. Now, my personal favorite, I love the Elite Premiers. I'm going to get a handful of Elite Premiers for my personal collection. I love low DIN numbers or low production numbers. I think those are cool. I love high detail. That being said, The cars that I'm not necessarily like dead set, cars like that I see in person. I'm going to get Elite Premiers like races I see win in person. But the cars I don't see win in person, the cars that I just want to see and take a look at and kind of see what they like, I'm going to recommend the Elite or the ARC. Because you can only get this through LionelRacing.com. You can't get them from any other sellers. You're probably not going to find them very cheap on eBay. The detail's cool, but is it worth the extra dollars? Because remember, you can buy 2 of these for the cost of 1 of those. And if you look at them, just right here, I'm just going to turn the cars like this. If you look at those 2 cars, can you tell enough of a difference to justify having 1 of these versus being able to pick out 2 of those? Because personally, I don't think you can. I don't think it's worth it from that side of it. Now, I'm also choosing to collect quality over quantity at this point because I don't want to have too much stuff. Because if you haven't noticed, I have a lot of stuff. And I don't like having too much stuff. But if you're very early starting out, start on these. This is a great way to kind of pick and choose, see what you like, learn about what you like. Maybe you're a person who just loves chrome numbers. That's your thing. Maybe you just love Fords. Maybe you love confetti cannons. If you don't know, don't go spending the crazy big money right away. Wait till you know. I want to get Chase Elliott's standard paint scheme for every season. I know that already. I've gone through enough, I've collected long enough to know. So this one I'm willing to get that Elite Premier because I love to get the Napa and the Hooters car from every season. So I picked those 2 up. But when it came to like Chase Elliott's Napa Gold car, it wasn't made. The Gold Filters car was not made in Elite Premier. And that's okay because I didn't actually really want it in Elite Premier. So there are some benefits to Elite Premiers. They're only offering very specific editions of cars. But on that same, on the same hand here, there's a certain point where not every car will be made in Elite Premier. So that does open the door to if you want to have all of your cars in the collection be the same, ARC or Elite, you can guarantee if it's made in ARC, it's probably going to be made in Elite. But if it's made in ARC and Elite, there's a good chance it's actually not made in Elite Premier unless it's a very specific car. So it's worth finding out which one is your preference and going from there. But like I said, those are my preferences, and I'm sure it'll change as time goes on. I'll move on from some cars and I'll pick up some others, and there's going to be different things like that. But that's all the differences I have shown thus far. Like I said, I'm not going to bring all these out for a nice big group shot. That's kind of all the variations of diecast we've gone through since 2003 when I really got into NASCAR. They've made a lot of changes. There's been a lot of cool things. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of not so good, cool things as well. But I will say, I think the diecasts do look really accurate now, and that is pretty cool. At least they've got them looking right. And I hope the detail does come back at some point too with it. So anyway, guys, let me know, what was your favorite generation of diecast and what was the engine detail like in those cars? Personally, like I said, Gen 4 Elites are probably some of my favorites. I love the early COT Elites. 2007, 2008 to me personally is the peak year. I thought the detail was just so darn good. Sadly, Casey Kane only won 1 race that gave us an Elite, so I'll have to search for some other cars if I want to get something in Elite. But other than that, guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope you have enjoyed this review of all the Cup cars. Leave a comment and a like down below. But other than that, stay tuned for more NASCAR diecast content. This has been Race Craze. We'll see you in the next one.